and then the medical center. The planner said we need to put the loop road on the outside of the parking so that when someone is parked, they don't have to worry about getting run over making their way into the hospital. And so that is the second major construction project going, this loop road. And the third one is what we call community living centers, CLCs. You know community living centers essentially as civilians as nursing homes. We actually have 3 units, nursing home units, within the hospital. And we are moving those patients out of those. They're actually in my building, building 1, and we are going to build 4 additional units out in the front. Some of you probably remember, I'm going to guess all of you remember, the golf course that used to be in the front of the VA. Well, we are now using some of that space to put in these CLCs. So think about it like a wheel. So we're going to have 4 spokes, 4 different wings that are coming out. They will each have 18 rooms, so they're private rooms with private baths and such for the veterans. And then a hub, a central area that's going to have their eating area, a cooking area, fireplace, just a large area where they can all meet. So those are some major things that VA is doing. My friend Karen Grove from the Chamber of Commerce, the CEO and director of the Chamber of Commerce, was very surprised a couple of years ago to learn that our budget is $600 million. Let that sink in for a moment. That's $500 million coming into our community from our local hospital, which serves your friends and neighbors and those who have served. We feel we have the best mission in the American government. There are 15 departments, federal departments, Department of Labor, Department of Education, such. The Department of Veterans Affairs is the second largest. Allen's Department of Defense is the largest group. Makes sense that we get being fed from the largest group are the second largest group. Things you can help us do though, if you know veterans who are not getting their health care at VA, please tell them to come talk to us. Please tell them to enroll with us. The VA's satisfaction rate across the nation, people are often surprised to hear this, is in the low 90 percentile. I think it's around 92% right now. Lebanon's, ours is almost at 96%. You know? And I ask people, are you 96% of the time happy with your doctor's office, happy with, you know, the care that you receive? You would think sometimes because of the news that we hear on television, when you're streaming, however you consume your news, that the VA is a place that's not very good. But study after study after study shows the exact opposite. For example, the RAND Corporation, and I know Alan would know the RAND Corporation, but the RAND Corporation is a big think tank in Washington, D.C. They recently did a study of quality between VA and private sector, and they compared 47 different metrics of quality. Do you know how many the VA beat the private sector in? 46 of them. 46 metrics. This independent agency said that we were better than private sector. Oh, and by the way, the one that we didn't beat them at, they didn't beat us in it. We tied. So in no place did the RAND Corporation find that private sector care was better than VA care. During COVID, they ran a survey, a study on heart attacks, cardiac arrest. So when I was a young guy, I was a paramedic, so I'm very familiar with cardiac arrest. And do you know that they found that statistically, people who suffer from cardiac arrest, from heart attacks, are more likely to survive and be what we call viable? That is, they don't have cognitive deficit if they go to a VA hospital than if they go to a private sector hospital. Have you ever heard that? No, because VA is terrible about telling its own story. We do a terrible job of telling our own story. If you know anybody that uses a nicotine patch or nicotine gum, guess where that was invented? At the VA. If you know somebody that uses aspirin for an aspirin regimen, you know, because they've had heart attack, guess where that was invented? At the VA. Internal defibrillators, internally planted pacemakers, guess where they were invented? The VA. A lot of people don't know this, but we have 3 missions as the VA. One is to obviously take care of veterans. 2 is to train the nation's physicians. Did you know that 70% of doctors are trained at the VA? Think about that. 70% of the physicians in the United States do training rotations through the VA. Every single VA hospital, and there's 170 of them, has an affiliation with a medical school. Like for us, it's Hershey, or now the Penn State College of Medicine. But those students all come and train at Lebanon. So we are hard at work. We are not a perfect. We did over 500,000 appointments last year. They don't always go perfectly. I do get complaints. But, you know, it's a human institution. We certainly are always doing our very best. So I am the person, and my administrative role at the VA, one of the things I do is outreach to the community. So one of the community programs that I am now involved with is the semi-quincentennial. Many of you are probably aware that next year, July 4th, 2026, we celebrate 250 years of American independence. I'm not exactly sure how, I really am not, Joe Ellen, but somehow the commissioners in their wisdom appointed both my wife and I to that committee. And so there's there's what they call the core or the executive committee, there's a large community committee, and then there's other subcommittees. Alan and Joe Ellen are both on the military subcommittee because obviously there is a lot of military history here in Lebanon County. All you have to do is think Cornwall Furnace and the cannonballs that were produced for General Washington and his army, as well as the militia. So we have a rich heritage. We are working closely with the Pennsylvania State Museum, the Pennsylvania Military Museum, to get some different displays and that sort of thing. We're focusing on a big picnic party, whatever celebration one might call it, on the 4th of July, and it will all be at the Expo Center. Mayor Capello is moving the fireworks for next July 4th. They're not going to be at Coleman Park as they normally are. Instead, they are going to be at the Expo Center. We're hoping that all the local communities will all come and celebrate as one county, as those who live in Lebanon County and love Lebanon County, to be a part of the big celebration. So that's exactly 15 minutes. So I will leave you then end with 5 minutes for questions, if anyone has questions. The only thing I can't do, because Alan and I served together, as an Army chaplain, I cannot reveal his confessions. They were never very interesting, though. It's usually like being stoned by marshmallows or something. I have children that have more interest in confessions than Alan.
If somebody asked, like, who was in the military, anybody that served get benefits from the VA? Or, I know it goes in like tiers as to where you served, I guess, but if someone asks, you know, well, I served, but I didn't apply because I wasn't in any of the, I didn't touch soil at, let's say, in Nam or wherever, Iran or Afghanistan or whatever.
Right. So that is a very common misconception. I thought growing up that once you served, when you got out, you got into the VA and case closed. I think most civilians think that. That is not the case. You have to meet particular criteria. But that criteria is constantly changing. And for example, in 2019, the government really threw the doors open with what we call the PACT Act. So that opened the door to anyone who was exposed, who had what we call toxic exposures. So, and what you and I might think of toxic exposures is not always the case. For example, tank shells. When a tank shoots shoots its main gun, some of those shells that they use are uranium tipped. And that means that being inside that enclosed space, that tank crew of 5 was exposed to radiation more so than the average human being. I did 2 tours of Iraq, and I recently, just within the past 12 months, I've been diagnosed with 4 different lung diseases. So, and the VA says that those are all related to the exposure to burn pits. So what we do is just tell people, just come in and talk to us. You can fill out an application online and send it in, but it's much easier for us to help people get in if they come and talk to our enrollment specialist. They don't have to have an appointment, they can just walk in and we can help them. And again, so my own father's a veteran, and he was not qualified for VA care. He was what they call an 8G. So he never had any injuries or illnesses in the military, and he made too much money to be qualified because there's an income if you're not service connected. But at the end of his life, the VA declared him catastrophically ill because he had dementia and had to be in a locked dementia ward. That he could have gotten care at VA. The day he died, because he then had to move to a hospice unit, VA called me and said, okay, we can take your dad now. And I told him, well, he just died this morning, so you have to take the next person on the list. So we would just encourage people to apply. Come talk to us.
If I could, excuse me, give my input. I'm kind of a frequent flyer to the VA, and I normally am there a couple times a month for different appointments, but I don't understand why there's not higher enrollment, and I think it's probably, Doug alluded to, the perception that, you see what you see on the news, and my experience is always, I have both VA care and private sector as well through my, what I have, but predominantly I go to the VA. And sometimes they can't support you there, so they get you appointments in the, for different things, but, it's just outstanding care that I've always received there. So again, as he said, if you know of anybody that's not in there, they're missing out.
Yeah, we really welcome any and all veterans to come and have that conversation with us. I hear veterans, especially Vietnam veterans, because that's our largest population right now, but they'll say, oh, I want to leave it for somebody else, somebody that's more beat up than me. And I say to them, okay, well, when's the last time you gave one of your good friends $3,000 to go to the doctor? You paid for their doctor and gave them $3,000. And they usually are like, I would never give any of my friends $3,000 to go to the doctor. I said, well, that's what happens with Congress. They give us $3,000. It's actually $2,750 for any new veteran that comes and gets VA health care. And that's if they're very healthy. We get more money based on their complexity of their care. So when we talk about in the military, we have a culture, leave no one behind. That culture, by enrolling in the VA, that helps you help your brothers and sisters at arms. Sometimes they think, oh, well, you're not a real hospital. No, we're a real hospital with real doctors, real nurses, that are doing research and writing peer review articles and that sort of thing. So yes, you can come and be a part of our facility. Anything else? Ooh, it's 2 minutes over now. All right. So I'll hang out if anybody has any questions, if you want to talk afterward or whatever. But again, on behalf of Jeff Byler, our director, our 2,500 employees, and the 50,000 veterans we serve, including Alan, thank you for inviting me here today.
Thank you.